Hello Year 5 and welcome to week 7 of Monday's maths session. I hope you've all had a really lovely half term. Okay, so we're going to get started today. We're going to begin with some mental maths work, and we're going to begin by looking at number bonds to 100 and multiples of 100. So I want you to think about, to begin with, what do I need to add to 34 to make 100? Now often our initial reaction is to think, oh, 76, because 70 and 30 make 100. However, we need to think about why it wouldn't actually be 100. And I'm going to show you on this number line. So we are going to begin down here on 34. And we're going to think about, what do we need to add to 34 to get to the next 10? Well, the answer is going to be, we need to add 6 to get ourselves to 40. And then what do we need to add to 40 to obviously get ourselves to 100? And the answer is 60. So altogether we've added 6 and 60. So what do we need to add to make what do we need to add to 34 to make 100? We need to add 66. And if we take a little look, then we can see here from our jottings, then we've got 34, add 6 to get to the next 10, which is 40, and then 40 add 60 to make 100. So the answer is actually 66 rather than 76. Let's look at the next example. What do I need to add to 65 to make 100? Why is it not 45? Let's have a look then at what we need to add to begin with. So to begin with, we're starting on 65 and we want to get to the next 10, which is 70. So we're going to need to add 5. From 70 then, to get to 100, we need to add 30. So altogether then, we are adding 35 to 65 to get to 100. And once again, here's my jottings here. 65 add 5 to get to 70, 70 add 30 to get us to 100. Now, just taking it a step further, for those of you that might like a challenge, what do we need to add to 340 to make 1,000? And again, we need to think about the fact that if we start on 340, we actually this time want to get to the next 100. So we're going to add 60. You can see here that gets us to 400. And then 400 add 600 makes 1,000. So altogether then, what do we need to add to 340 to make 1,000? We need to add 660. Okay, and then if we actually have a look at what do we need to add to 340 to make 50, well, we need to think about the fact then that actually to get from 340 to the next 100, we are going to want to add 60. So we're going to have 340 add 60. That will get us to 400. And then we have got 400, obviously add 100, and that gets us to 500. So altogether then we can see we added 60 and 100. So what do we need to add altogether? 160. So today then, what you're going to do for me is you're going to choose a level of challenge. I don't mind which one you have a go at completing. Try and choose a good challenge for you. You're going to think about what you need to add to the numbers in blue to either make 100, to make 1,000, or to make 10,000. If you want to challenge yourself, you might want to have a go at more than one column. So if you pause the video now, and then the answers will be up on the next page. So here we have the answers there, and again you can pause the video to mark your own work. Today then in maths, we're going to be looking at understanding the value of decimals numbers. We're going to be thinking about the value of these numbers, and in particular decimal numbers, and how we can go about partitioning them. So in order to be successful today, we're going to need to use our knowledge of place value. We're going to maybe need to think about mathematical resources, obviously that we would normally have in the classroom to help us understand the value of each digit. And we also would be using perhaps place value grids to help us really identify the value of those different numbers. So I want you to think about now, maybe pause the video, can you have a go at writing these following numbers in words? Pause the video now. Okay, let's have a look at those then. So the first one then, we've got 0.1 for this one here. The second one then, we've got 0.23. We tend to say 0.23 rather than 0.23. 0.23. And finally then, for this final one over here, we've got 2.45. So things we need to remember then when we're looking at decimals today. Numbers in the decimal columns you read left to right. Decimal point is read as point, and you read the numbers after the decimal place as digits. Okay, so we're going to begin by having a little look now at the value of the different digits in a number with decimal places. So that's numbers after the decimal point. And I've just got this illustration here for you of 1.11. And what we're going to do is we're going to think about the relationship between this place value, and 1. We're going to begin here with our tenths. And if we have 1/10, it is equal to 0.1. Now, when we have a look at the relationship between tenths and a whole here, we can see that 10 tenths are equal to 1 whole. So we need 10 of these tenths in order to make 1. Here then, we've got our hundredths column. And we can see here that in order to make a tenth, we need 10 hundredths to equal 1/10. And in order to make 1 whole, we actually need 100 hundredths to make 1 whole. So I'm just going to read you this information here. 1 is 10 times the size of 1/10. 1/10 is 10 times the size of 100th. 1 is 100 times the size of 100th. And that's going to be really important for us today. So the first part of our learning today is going to be to look at the value of different numbers in, different digits, the value of different digits in numbers. So we're going to begin by looking at the number 1.2. And we're going to focus on what the value of that 2 is. That 2 is in the tenths column. So it is worth 2/10. So to show 2/10 as a decimal, we record it as 0.2. Nothing in our ones column, but 2 in our tenths column. Our second number here is 8.7. Looking at the value of this 7, it is also in our tenths column. So we record it as 0.7. That's the value of that 7. 7/10 is equal to 0.7. Let's have a look at some more numbers now, where we've got not just tenths, but we've also got hundredths as well. We've got the number here, 6.96. We'll begin by looking at the 9. The 9 is in the tenths column, so we're more familiar with that one now. So we record that as 0.9. And then our 6, and I'm talking about this digit here, this 6, is in the hundredths column. So we record that as 0.06. We wouldn't record it as 0.6 because then it would read 6/10, and it's not worth 6/10. It's smaller than that, it's worth 600. So we record it as 0.06. Next, in our second number, we've got 4.37. We obviously know that 4 is worth 4 ones, so that's felt 4. Looking then at our 3, it's in the tenths column. So 3/10 is equal to 0.3. And then our 7 is in the hundredths column. So we record that 7 hundredths as 7 is equal to 7.07. That 7 here is equal to 7/100, and that's how we write it there. Slightly harder one then is going into our thousandths. So maybe you might want to pause the video and maybe think about what would you consider the value of this 8 to be here. So have a little think about that one. So we've got 2.548, that's how we'd read it. Obviously 2 is worth 2 ones. Starting with our 5 then is worth 0.5 because that's the same as 5/10. Then our 4 is worth 400, so we record that as 0.04. You can see we must make sure our 4 is in the right column, in that right place value, in order for us to read it and understand the value correctly. And I wonder how we got on with that last one. 8,000th, that's the thousandths place, so that comes after the hundredths, is recorded as 0.08. So the first part of your activities today is going to be to identify the value of different numbers in different digits in numbers. I've said that twice now, haven't I? So the value of digits in numbers, and it's going to be particularly important to be focusing the decimal value of those numbers. So hopefully that's just helped you with that part. The second thing you're going to do today is I've just put a waggle on the board for you so you understand what we're talking about. You're going to be creating your own decimal number, and it might be with 1 decimal place, or it might be with 2 here. It might even be you challenge yourself with 3. And you're going to have a go at representing the number in different ways by partitioning it. And what we mean by partitioning is breaking the number into parts so that when we put it back together, it still is of the same value. So we've looked here at the number 4.65. And my first example, we've called it bubble partitioning, sometimes it's also known as a cherry model as well, is we have the number 4.65 and I've partitioned it, so I've broken it up into 4, into 0.6, which is 6/10, and I wonder how much is left for my final bubble. Well, what's missing from my number? If I put my number back together, I'd have 4.6 at the moment. I'm missing my 5/100ths. So I now know how I need to record 5/100ths. It's 0.05, not 0.5, because that would be 5/10. And altogether then, I've created 4.65. Another way you might want to do it is a number sentence. Now this is a particularly tricky one. Your number sentence could be as simple as 4 plus 0.6 plus 0.05. Here's a slightly harder one then, where you can see bit tricksy. So if we look at our whole numbers first, our 4, I've broken it into 1 and 3 there, and our tenths you can see has been broken into 2 and 4/10. So I've got 1.2 plus 3, that would give me 4.2, plus 0.4 would give me 4.6, and again plus 0.05 equals 4.65. You don't need to break your numbers up in that much sort of complexity, but you can do if you'd like a challenge. And finally your bar model then, and you can see here once again I've kept my 5/100ths the same, and I've actually taken my 4.6 and I've given 2 ones in this part of the bar, 2 ones in this part of the bar, 3/10 in this one, and 3/10 in this one, and altogether these 3 parts will make 4.65. So those are the tasks you're going to have a go for us today. We look forward to seeing your work.